So,
Mm.
so do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, I hate doing that. It's so awkward. Like, just say my name.
Okay, I'll introduce you. This is Ray. I'm gonna talk to her about trans stuff and her experiences with being trans in her life. Um, so the reason I want to have this talk is because I think it will be good for people to hear about the experiences and insights that trans people have had over the years because maybe it's just me, but I don't talk to that many trans people, and all the stuff I see online, it can be kind of biased. Like people don't always show the more difficult experiences and the more deep insights that you could have. Um, so I think it's just useful to talk about it for. I think it's interesting, and I think it could be useful to a lot of people who haven't gone through a lot of the experiences you might have gone through.
Mhm.
Um, so do you want to say how old you are?
Well, I'm 30. Oh God. But turning 30 is a
You look
whole
like.
can of worms when you're trans.
Is it?
Yeah, because it's like I think everyone's so afraid to turn 30, but I think it's such a magical year of coming into yourself and kind of like realizing that you can do so many things. It's just like you're the one in the way of making it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a big year. I don't know yet, but I mean, you look like you're 18 to me.
I really don't. Someone said that earlier, and I was like, "You're crazy." Wait, so how old are you? How old are you?
I'm 26.
Okay, so
Yeah.
like you're you're creeping into your that age where I feel like a lot of people are scared to start turning to because you
Yeah.
start like realizing more about yourself.
Yeah, when you're like 25, your brain actually starts working.
Hmm.
And you're like,
It
"Oh no,
starts
what did I
to.
do? What have I
It's
done?"
bad, but I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yeah. Um so I guess what makes the most sense is to start from the beginning. Um
Mhm.
so when did you first start having identity issues? If that's if
Oh,
that's a good way to put it.
I like knew when I was like 3. I think that's like when my consciousness was alive or yeah,
Uh-huh.
alive. Like I remember a lot of stuff back then. So like when I was 3, I didn't like playing with the stuff my brother played with. Like I would play with more fem stuff. My family let me do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like over time, like I just knew I was different. Like I didn't know the words.
Mhm.
So it's like I like go through the world like really confused because I'm like, well, why? That's why I think gendering toys and stuff like that is really problematic because everyone should be able to enjoy whatever toy they like. It doesn't make them more of a girl or more of a boy to enjoy dolls or like trucks or whatever, you know?
Yeah. So when you were like 3, you kind of liked society's culture. You leaned more towards femininity at a younger age.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
I did.
So when you're that young, you don't really know what being trans is. You don't really have a concept of gender, right? Would you agree
Hmm.
with that?
Yeah, like
So
I would have never known.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, when did you when did you hear about being trans, and how did you hear about that?
So it's gonna be so silly. I remember like I knew like about gay stuff when I was like a little kid, but I never knew about trans stuff until I was like I think I was 15. And then I was like, searching up online. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? I have to figure it out. So I just
Yeah.
like go info dumping and finding all of this information. And then they were like, oh, trans. And I was like, oh, what the hell is that? And then I started reading and then I started like I looked at other Asian trans people too. Like there was this one girl, her name was like Nong Poi. She was like the hottest girl I have ever seen in my life. And I was like,
Yeah.
I want to be her. And that's how it started.
S So you saw, like, a really pretty trans girl?
Yeah, I was like, so it actually is a thing. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
just imagining it in my head. Like, people actually do it.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, around 15,
Hmm.
you
That's when
realized
I
it was
told
a
my,
thing.
yeah, I told my parents when I was 15 too, and they were so mad.
How did they react?
Like, so I told them I was gay, right? Because I thought I was gay. Because
Yeah.
as a kid, people would always say I was gay, which made no sense to me. Because like I never liked boys, and so like they thought I was gay for a long time just because I was
Mhm.
feminine, and I think also being Asian plays into a factor of that. Like people love to feminize Asian like boys and stuff like that if they present more feminine in that
Mhm.
regard. So I
So,
forgot where I was going with that.
um, how did your parents react? They
Oh,
were mad, and they thought you were gay?
yeah, they were like, "You're just going through a phase," and I was like,
Uh-huh.
"I'm not going through a phase." And they said, they laughed it off, like told
Mhm.
me I was crazy and stuff like that. Cause I guess they weren't educated about stuff like that. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's not their fault, but at the same time, like it kind of like pushed me into a corner because I was like, oh, I like my family doesn't even understand me. And I don't even understand myself. So like that's even more confusing. So it's like a clusterfuck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so I remember one of your Instagram posts. I wanted to bring it up,
Hmm.
um, because, it's part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna since you're talking about, being Asian and how people hyper feminize Asians depending on how you conduct yourself. I think
Hmm.
this post was relevant. Um, so I'm just gonna show it to the stream. Um,
Okay.
because I feel like this might people don't have insights like this, and I'm wondering what you had to go through to realize something like this. Um, yeah.
I'm like, you want the truth about that? Like that's some deep seated shit.
Yeah. So you said, um, like what you see. I'm sure a lot of people do when I fit into their standard of what femininity looks like. I've always been pushed into this hyper feminine category ever since I was a young kid who looked Asian. Demasculinized by my family and even my peers around me. Did I really have a chance to express that? Homophobic slurs that come with racial connotation always filled my internal mind. I ask you, do I really look feminine? Or do you think Asians are just inherently feminine from your racial bias? After doing the internal work and investigating my true self, I have never wanted to be a woman. I've just wanted to be pretty, to reflect the beauty that I have inside to present into the real world. The dangers of hyperfeminizing and emasculating Asian bodies is a huge issue. I've never had the best example of what a real man or a real woman was because of the traumas I've experienced growing up. But I'm glad I freed myself from those. I will never be good enough for either category, but I can be good enough for myself. That was my goal after all. So I really like
Wow.
that
Who
post.
wrote that?
um, was it hard to post that? Or was it?
Yeah. It's it was something difficult that I like, because I'm always like fighting with myself in my head, I feel like. And I guess since I started dating someone else that's also trans, and she's like earlier on in her transition, so we like talk about stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I felt validated by some stuff that we like related with and made me understand myself more, and I guess like if there's like an alternate reality or like version of myself, like I would be obviously like probably more non-binary than I would be trans femme.
Yeah,
But I guess like the label doesn't really matter. Like I would fall in whatever that I believe. And I guess unraveling all of my trauma from like childhood that plays into who I am now as a person just kind of goes with that too. So it's like it's so much shit to like talk about.
yeah,
It's almost like a real-time colonization on me as a person because my dad was kind of like an authoritarian character who was a very racist man who definitely did take it on his wife and kids.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, so when I read that, I think um there was a time where in your past you convinced yourself you wanted to be a woman, right?
Galaxy
Mhm.
brain.
And um as you went through the experiences of being trans and transitioning, you grew up a bit and you realize you don't want to be a woman, you just want to be pretty. So you want to express how you feel on the inside, and the way that manifested is you clung to a certain idea of how you should appear on the outside, and then you found you like you saw that pretty trans girl when you're 15, and you always lean towards the feminine side. um I don't know yet why, um but that's how you felt on the inside. um
Mhm.
I think I think a lot of trans people are scared to admit that. I'm thinking right. I don't talk to a lot of trans people.
Mhm.
I probably talk to a lot of like anti-trans people. I've probably spoken to anti-trans people more than trans people. So
Really?
yeah. So I don't know what a lot of trans people think. But um, it's hard to admit that because there's like this whole trans movement going on right now where it's they're referencing like brain scans, there's an F or an M in your brain or something, right? And I feel like it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird to push that thought process because it's not really
Mhm.
necessary. Like there's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with wanting to look a certain way or identify as the gender that you like in society. Um, so I feel like some people get trapped into this idea that they need to be seen as like an actual woman, and they like convince themselves that, oh yeah, I was born in the wrong body, which you could say that in a sense, right? But
Mhm.
um I don't think it's useful for your own self-identity and your own mind, if that makes sense. Do you kind of see what I'm trying to say? So that's why I like how you acknowledged that it was kind of it was kind of like a social thing. Is that
Mhm.
is that how you see it? Like how you felt?
Yeah, it was influenced like a lot with my mom because my mom she always like would almost make me feel bad. She was like, "Oh, I thought I was going to have a girl with you and all of this stuff," cuz she always wanted a daughter.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, since I felt so different, like I didn't know my identity at all. So I was like, maybe I can be the daughter that my mom wanted, even though like that's never going to happen because that's like it's not about the daughter thing. It's about traumas that happened when I was a kid. Like, but for
Do you
me,
want to
like,
talk about those?
oh, I mean, if you want, you want to hear all that?
Well, maybe like the biggest one if you want to share it.
Ooh, are you ready for this one? You're gonna be like, what the fuck?
I'm
Well,
ready.
just like a trigger warning if anyone has like feels really uncomfortable about stuff like this. I feel like you shouldn't listen because it will definitely like bother you. It's like it's kind of disgusting, basically.
Okay.
So my dad like molested me when I was a kid, and I was the person that always tells the truth, and my family never liked that. They always told me to like shut my mouth, keep my mouth shut, stop talking about like what goes on in our house. Like you have no right to say that, even though like, they're abusing us. But, no one sees that because we're just emotionless people because we're not allowed to be expressive because we've just been, I don't know, beaten down by like so much early on trauma that we should have never, like me and my brother should have never went through together. Yeah.
You and your brother never should have went through what? Oh, the trauma. Is your
Yeah.
brother?
Cause Yeah, I don't really talk to any of my family anymore because I kind of when I went to therapy, I finally like uncovered that memory in my head and I was like,
It was blocked
that's
off
why it's
before.
yeah, it was always blocked off, but one of my other trans friends like confided in me about like something similar that happened to her, and when that happened to her, I couldn't stop thinking about it, and then
How old were
like
you?
in I was 7. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It was a long time ago. We okay now.
Okay. So that was blocked from your mind, and that combined with the other, do you think that played a big role in how you started wanting to identify as the other gender?
I think so. I think I knew like I was gonna be trans regardless, like no matter what. But I definitely think like that and wanting to get my mother's approval definitely made me like want to pass more, be like, have certain surgeries and stuff like that. Cause when I got my first one, I was like 19 and like, I wasn't thinking clearly, I guess, but at the end of the day, like I'm totally okay with my choices
Mhm.
because like I probably would have did it regardless, but I think like I wouldn't have been so desperate to want to validate myself from my family kind of thing.
Was that a major motivation? You wanted to be better for your family, for your mom, and because she
Yeah,
always wanted a daughter?
I just wanted my mom to love me, and when my mom abandoned me pretty early on emotionally, like I because like me and my mom were very close when I was a kid.
Mhm.
So when she like kind of like threw me to the wolves, it kind of like threw me through a loop, and I was always like trying to like be good enough for her, but everything I would do would just never be good enough kind of thing.
Yeah. Did you have yeah, so I think yeah, they they really fucked up a bit. Um that's messed up because people need a certain amount of love growing up, right? Like that's
Hmm.
like you enter into this world and that's all you want, you know? Like you start crying because you want attention, which is love. And then you grow up and then that manifests you want more love, you want friends and companionship and you want to fit in with society. And in order to do that, um you have to appeal to the people around you in society. So something like it can manifest in like a lot of extreme ways because some people will just get like depressed or something, right? If they're not getting enough love, but other people like develop more severe mental issues like depression, anxiety, or like suicidal tendencies. And then I guess being trans I don't know how much being transgender is a part of this. So this manifestation of not getting enough validation growing up. What do you think about that?
Mm, I feel like I feel like I go into an existential crisis thinking about this sometimes, but I think like even if it did have something to do with it, I think it would be just like too difficult to argue because at the end of it, like I always knew in my head, I was like, there's something weird about me that I just don't understand. And I think like if society and all of that stuff were removed and I was raised in a neutral environment, I definitely think I would probably still feel trans
You think so?
regardless. Yeah, because I've always felt like an alien in my brain.
Yeah.
Like my brain is just not me. Like when I'm talking, I'm like, that's not my brain talking. That's my actual self.
That's funny. So, do you think what do you think about do you think you have a spirit and do you think your mind is the part that's not you or something?
Sometimes, yeah, because I guess my mind is like it's like its own thing because it's like
Your
so
mind
shaped
is
by.
everything that you've
Mhm,
experienced as a human in society. Everything you've absorbed to like construct your ego, right? That's how your
mhm,
mind develops. And it's like every single experience you have builds your mind and then a part of your brain applies context to every experience, which is different for every person. So like depending on your spirit, you apply different context. Because everybody's born slightly differently, right? So
mhm.
um, that context and how you like repeat the recontextualization of every experience in your head is kind of how that gets built up, I think. Um, which I can see how you like might not understand some things. Most people don't. I mean, most normal people don't either. Um, I feel like you've probably thought about this kind of stuff more than most normal people because going through trans is a lot, you know? Like You go through a lot of suffering, I think. And when you go through suffering is when you start contemplating your experience and your thoughts more, I think. Um because if everything is always good and happy, then like you have no reason to question anything, right?
It's
Um
true, yeah.
so like I think there's an advantage. Like I don't think anything's good or bad, but I think people who go through a lot of suffering have something that a lot of other people might not have, which is a deeper understanding of themselves in a sense.
Mhm.
Um because for you to go through and transition and then realize, oh fuck, it's not that I didn't actually need to go through all of that, did I? I mean, I guess you did because you did. But then you realize afterward it's like, "Oh fuck, how much did I get like manipulated by society's projections on me?" And it's like a really fucking like you said, it's like when you realize that, it's it's like an existential crisis cuz it's like um you question everything in your past, right?
Mhm.
Like everything you did and why you did it. Um, which is the hard part when that first comes up, but it's not the most important part. Like that questioning it's hardest to get to that point because you have to accept certain things you might not want to accept, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then like when you actually accept what you did and move forward with no regrets, then that's where you experience like tremendous growth, I think. Um
Mhm.
because you went through so much bullshit that like 99% of people don't have to go through. And then you realize like the reasoning behind all of it, and I think that's super powerful. Because you just know yourself. You know yourself like at such a deep level that it's like you can do anything, after like overcoming really negative experiences. Um, and I wanted to ask, what you think about the surgeries you've had following that.
Like, the ways that I got them or,
Yeah,
like,
like
how I feel about them in
what was the
general?
first surgery you got, and like what was it like for
Oh
people
god.
who don't know? Like most people will never think about this kind of stuff or experience it in any way.
Yeah, so when I was 19, I wanted reassignment surgery so bad. Like, I was so
Yeah.
desperate, like, I, from a young age too, like, I was very suicidal, but when I would feel dysphoric about, like, my bottom area, I would, like, get severely, like, depressed. I would, like, go through, like, suicidal ideation. I would be like, "I don't wanna be here anymore, like, if I have this on my body." And I know, like, a huge part of that does come from trauma that I've experienced and stuff like that, but I know, like, now that I would have gotten it anyway because it's just something I wanted. But
Hmm.
I had that when I was 19. I flew to Thailand by myself.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy. Yeah, and I went to this doctor who discounted me half price, which is kind of sketchy when I think about it now. And
Yeah.
I literally flew there like
Do you speak the language there?
no, I do not
Oh
speak
my god, you're
Thai, but
crazy.
they all speak English, and people in Thailand are actually so friendly and nice. Like, I
Uh-huh.
have never been to a country where everyone is not so nice. Like, they're smiling in the streets. like speaking to me in Thai as if I know what they're talking about. Cause I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm not Thai." But
That's cool.
that surgery was like really bad because it was my first one and I was alone. And after, like, when I was recovering, I got really bad post-op depression. And, like, I would constantly look at what I had done and I would be like, "Oh my God, did I really do the right thing?" And I think, like, being trans, you'll always be questioning yourself because there's just so many voices in my head sometimes. Like, I can't differentiate which is mine and which is someone else's, like, projections of me.
Uh-huh.
And
Have you
that
thought
stuff just,
have you,
huh?
oh, sorry, you can continue.
Oh, no, you go. I
I
forgot what
I
I
was
was
gonna
going to
ask
say.
I was gonna ask about so you said there's so many thoughts in your head, you can't, like, figure out which ones are other people's projections and which ones might be your own.
Mm.
So have you tried to practice figuring out which ones are yours and which ones are projections? Have you thought about that at all?
Oh, yeah. One thing that I always do and I have been doing from since I was young is I always talk to myself in the mirror. I have like conversations with myself
Yeah.
and like I'll be arguing with myself, like, and arguing with the person that I used to know that would say shit like that. And I have definitely like differentiated a lot of stuff because before, like, there was a lot of negative influence in my mind from my brothers and my dad and men that grew up in my life about um girl bodily issues. Like, when I had my surgery done, I would hear like so much nasty shit like that. They're like, "Oh, that shit stinks, like that's disgusting, why would you ever want to do that, like that's gross, you're gonna regret it," and stuff like that. And I kind of internalized that a lot because it made me question myself even more, like, "Oh, did I do the right thing or did I do the wrong thing?" But at the end of the day, like, whatever I want to do for myself is what I want to do, and whatever they think does not matter because I
Yeah.
have to live with this body, I have to live with myself, and whatever is making me happy, like, looking in the mirror is what I'm going to be okay with.
So, yeah, that's right. And I think a lot of people are just hypocrites because sure, um, a surgery like that is more serious and it's more of a sacrifice. And I think the only thing people should be trying to tell you is things that will help you be more aware about the extent to what you're sacrificing,
Mhm.
right? Because on a daily basis, everything we do could be considered a sacrifice towards achieving something or losing something else. So every minute you spend doing something is a minute you could have spent building something else up. So I'd say like something like being a bodybuilder is a huge sacrifice because you're taking steroids and you're putting a lot of stress on your body. Um, Eating food to the point where you get obese is you're sacrificing your health for food or whatever you experience, whatever joy you experience. Modifying your body is another sacrifice, and a bottom surgery like that. Do you know what do you know? Did you know what you were sacrificing when you did that
Oh yeah, I knew.
at
Like,
19? Did you think about it a lot?
mhm. I thought about it, like, I think, yeah, I started thinking about that when I was like a kid too. Like, I would always, like, be in the bathroom, like, literally, sorry, weird word, but like, I would be like tucking as a kid. And I'd be like, "Oh my God, I look so cute." And, like, I guess, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's just something that always was there. It just came to the brain a little bit differently. And I, I don't know. I guess, like, I wasn't aware like stuff like that could actually happen. So I guess when it happened to me finally, I was like, I wasn't prepared because I did have a trans mom when I was 19. She was like this white lady that I met
Mhm.
near where I lived, and she kind of like gave me all that info. And I definitely do feel like she definitely influenced me a lot. Um, but I think like if I didn't do it back then, I probably would do it now because the
Really?
technology back then was a little different than it is now.
Mhm.
A lot has changed, and I think how long? I think it's been like
Like 11 years.
yeah, 11 years. So like everything is so different now.
Interesting. Yeah. So are you ever sad that you can't have biological kids?
Oh hell no, I don't give a fuck
No?
about that. I don't
Not at
want
all?
no biological children. I will adopt a kid one day and they will be my protege, but I don't want
Okay.
no bloodline kids from my lineage.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. Um, yeah, adopting is better for the world,
Mhm.
probably. Better for the kid. Um, hmm. Is there
How do you
anything
feel about that stuff though?
about what?
Like body modifications.
Which type of body modifications?
Oh, it can be anything. They're one and the same, right?
I think it's all the same. Um, I just think a lot of people will have okay, with trans people especially. I think they I think due to potential traumas and how they're coping with those traumas and how they're coping with societies and everything might blind them to the sacrifice they might be making with certain body modifications. And they might not
Mhm.
realize that until years after they start transitioning. But I think that's the same for a lot of things. Like if you don't pay attention in school, in high school, and you're like failing, a lot of kids don't know that they're sacrificing a potential future career or like um just potential job aspects in the future. So I think that's like a similar type of sacrifice. It's just like I think it's important to try to educate people about what you might miss later on if you're making a permanent modification, you know?
Mhm.
And some people might not care about having biological kids, but if you get bottom surgery, then you're sacrificing that for the rest of your life. And maybe that's like maybe some part of your spirit wants to fulfill that with somebody else and have that experience with somebody else, you know? So you might not care about it at the time because you're so obsessed with matching your internal self to your external self at the time that you don't really think about it. Um, so it's nice to hear from people like you who went through it and then see how you feel about it after. Um, just because it might like click with somebody else, you know, like maybe nobody ever thought about that. But I don't think it really makes a difference because if you get not all the time, but I don't think it makes a difference in a lot of people because they're just blind at the time when they're making those decisions. And most of them don't matter as much. Um, right now, that reminds me about something I wanted to ask you about. Um, it's like a popular topic right now, like politically. Uh,
Oh, well, what
the
is it?
like I think they just banned healthcare for trans children
Oh
in
yeah,
some
I saw
place,
that.
right? So
Mhm.
there's like lots of debate going on about whether they should be allowed to go on hormones. What do you think about that?
I
Do
feel like
like,
people need to stop.
what age
Um,
do you think is okay to start going on
I think
hormones?
if I think if it's actually impacting a kid to where like they are considering like, unaliving themselves and stuff like that, and if they've been in therapy and if they've been in the works of doing what they need to be doing, like I think it's totally acceptable to let like kids have like blockers for a while so they can just like figure out what they want and then like, you know, go back on like another set of puberty or the one that they were
Mhm.
given when they're a child. And I really just feel like adults need to stop acting like children can't make up their own minds and that children can't make their own decisions when a lot of these adults make decisions for children without their best interests at heart. Because a lot of these parents that are like against stuff like that, it's like you wouldn't even let your kid express themselves outwardly in the first place. So constricting something like that and making like that like a bad thing just shows people like, oh, they should be afraid to think those kind of things because it's like it's not going to go away if it's something that's been on their minds from an early age, in my opinion. But everyone is different. So
Yeah, so it's like I guess their argument is they're trying to save them from a potential disaster, right? But the problem
mhm,
with that, I wasn't really sure about this. One like at one point I thought they shouldn't do it, and then I kind of changed my mind. Um, because if you get to the point where you're questioning your identity at like 10, 12, like usually that's a deep rooted issue that isn't gonna go away because even if you go to therapy and like they have to go to therapy and see a psychiatrist, right? So if they're going to a therapist and seeing a psychiatrist and they still feel that way, I don't think anything is going to change it because the reason they feel that way is because the way they grew up with their family and with society and how they handled all of that. And they're not just going to suddenly leave that family and society. Um they're stuck there and like everything like their current feelings are like super deeply embedded into them. So like I don't think I think it has to be up to the parents because you could say something like, "Oh, this parent is going to ruin the kid's life by giving them puberty blockers." Um but maybe that kid's life is going to be ruined if they go through a puberty and experience permanent changes they don't like and then they kill themselves because of their dysphoria never goes away, you know? Um
mhm.
So and also you like it's an issue of freedom because like maybe you don't know what you want, but maybe someone else does know what they want, right? And if you were one of those people that did know what you wanted, you would not want somebody saying like no, you can't do what you want and then like that fucks you up for life because like you have to let people make mistakes. Like what are you going to do? Like add a law every time somebody's making a mistake that you think they might make? Like I don't think you can do that. So I think like the only logical answer is to make it like give the parents the power to allow their children to do that. Um with like professional psychiatrist therapist knowledge and treatment. Yeah. Because I like you can reverse puberty blockers. It's not like that permanent. Permanent surgeries are like a bit more serious. That,
Mhm.
but I don't think a lot of young kids are doing that, anyways. Um,
Yeah, a lot of people just forget that like trans people are like a very, very small population of people. Like, and yeah, there will be people that obviously regret things that they do, but I think that's just a human way of living. Like, sometimes people are going to regret things that they do because ultimately, like, decisions we make always have to be finalized, and sometimes people aren't okay with those decisions years after they make them because you're going to grow differently every single day. Like you're always going to be changing. So something like you did 10 years ago, you might not want to be doing, you might not be okay with now, but
Yeah, like
you know,
70% of people who are unhappy with their jobs today, you know?
yeah. And some of
Like,
these people
oh, hey,
unhappy
20
with their
years ago we
marriages and
should have
kids.
outlawed your choice to not pay attention to not pay attention in school. Like then you would have a job you might like. Um yeah, I just think it's like hypocritical when people like try to force other people to do what they want at the expense of their own freedom of choice. Um yeah. Um what was the last question I asked you? It was about
Oh, it was about
surgery.
the changes and oh, the one before that.
Yeah, the one before the political question. Um I'm just thinking.
Mm.
So, what about the other surgeries?
Oh, so I got a trachea shave a few years ago as well. And honestly, the biggest reason why I got that was because people would clock me all the time. Even though like cis girls have Adam's apples too, but I
Yeah,
noticed
they do.
yeah, but I noticed that when you're like half Asian, half white, a lot of people will clock a lot of girls because when you're mixing with like a white person and an Asian person, like the body structures are differently. Like, some traits I have that are my dad's and stuff and whatnot. And sometimes the way that it looks on me, since like I'm not stereotypical like what an Asian, like, Filipino girl looks like, they're like, "Oh, you look fucking masculine" or shit like that. And I'm
Mhm.
like, it's not really masculine. It's just like everyone will get a set of genetic traits from each of their parents, no matter what they or what chromosomes they have.
Was it like random people or was it like people who already know you're trans? They would just like
It,
try to fuck with you.
um, Actually, it happened to me one time when I was at a gay bar when I was 19. So it was like drag night there. And it was like my first time going. I was like so excited. And
Uh-huh.
I literally go sit with my friends because like a lot of my friends were also trans because like they were in college with me too. And this group of lesbians, like they start talking to me. They're like, "Oh, like are you and your friends T words?" And I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "Who
T
asked
words.
that first of all?" And I was like, "No, they're not." And she was like, "Oh, but are you?" And I was like, "Yeah, is that a problem?" She's like, "Maybe you should get that Adam's apple removed. Like it was a dead giveaway."
Oh
And I was
my
like, "What
gosh.
the hell?"
Dude,
Like but
what is
like
wrong with people?
I don't know. It was so random. I was like, okay,
Yo, maybe you should
anyways.
get this surgery, by the way. Jeez.
Yeah, that would happen to me a lot, especially when I was a streamer too. I wasn't out and people would be like, "Oh, you have an Adam's apple, you're a dude," like all this shit. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "Ooh." And like that bothered me a lot because my safety is a big thing for me because I did get like beat up when I was a teenager. Uh, so like I always have a fear that I'm gonna get like assaulted out in public. So like I guess like passing for me was like really important in some regards. So like I guess the trachea shave was a big one for me and like I don't regret that one. I feel good about my smooth neck
Mhm.
personally.
Yeah, because it's actually like a lot of fear can build up from like there's a lot of negative stigma about trans people. Like it might be getting better over the years, but um yeah, safety is a serious thing. Like some people are crazy and they'll yeah, a lot of trans women have been attacked and killed just for being trans. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Um are there any surgeries like you I don't want to say regret cuz I don't think you regret anything, but is there anything like any insights you want to give or say about a surgery?
Oh,
Or
I will say like something about like having boobs, like so like I never had a problem with being flat chested. Like I never gave a fuck. Like I
like
liked
me?
being flat. Yeah, like there's honestly nothing wrong with like having small boobs. Like they're cute. Um and for a while I would get really internalized hatred for like not having boobs because like people around me were like saying like, oh, you're flat chested, no one's ever gonna want a girl like you, blah blah blah, no one's gonna want a girl that's just sticking bones. And it's like even when I was like, a little boy, like people were always like making like rude comments like that to me, like, oh, you're so skinny, that's disgusting, stuff like that. So like to see it continue to manifest into a different way, it's like, oh, you want to be a girl now, so we're going to include you in misogyny. It's like, what the hell? Like I never wanted to be a part of this at all. And I remember specifically one time I was with this one person I was dating, and his family members came over, and I was just wearing a tank top, no bra, whatever. And I was 20 at the time, and his sister and her husband were like baked as hell, and they were just like, "Oh, you look like you could use some stuffing," like look like saying like I was flat chested and just laughing it off. And like, for
Yeah,
someone that's 20 years old and thinks very highly of what older people think, I was like, oh, like, and like I had a deep seated like insecurity because like a lot of the people that I would date would always be like looking at like these huge titted girls. So I'd be
right?
like, oh my God, like, how are you gonna date me and I'm flat?
I think like yeah, like most dude, I feel like the breast implant surgery percentage for cis women is really high. Like,
Hmm.
dude, it's probably like 50% in Korea or something. I don't know. Um, do you regret that one, or what do you think about that one now?
I think if I had the option to do it all over again, I wouldn't do it.
Hmm.
But like, I'm totally fine with it now because I'm like, oh, I look hot, whatever. But
Yeah,
I guess like now with all of like the things in my head, I would have never done it. And
it's easier to say to like once you do something, it's easier to look at the alternative because you already like it's like it's like you conquered a certain anxiety by changing the part that was causing that anxiety. So it's way
mhm,
easier to look back with a clear mind and be like, why did I do that? But it's like it's hard to have that insight until you actually do it, you know? So,
mhm,
I wonder how many people it's probably like a really common percentage where people change something and then that dysmorphia goes away and then they're like, do I really need to change that?" Um, so yeah, that makes sense. Um, it's really just humans are like humans right now are so good at judging. Like it's hard for them to stop judging. It's like even if you don't do it externally, every time you look at somebody, you're making an internal judgment. Like so many people live that way and like they can't even stop it if they wanted to. Um so if you judge that much and it's like built into your mind to like maybe it's built into every human unless you like super work towards it, which I think like Buddhists and like Taoism and like certain spiritual teachings like they try to overcome that, then you're gonna judge yourself a lot, um, because you're just comparing to like the best idea in your head if you judge all the time,
mhm,
um, which is different for everyone. Everyone's best is different, you know. Like there's no like first aesthetic. It's all subjective, right? Um,
mhm.
but people tend to appeal to what the majority of society likes. So it's like I know people who are like super against surgeries, right? Like I heard somebody say the other day, it's like they said something like I feel like they looked at plastic surgery like super negatively and they were like, "Do you think these people are um like fucking everyone else over by getting surgeries because they're raising society's standards of what you should look like?" And then like more and more of society looks at the looks at the increased beauty standard and then that influences future generations like it goes on forever, right? Um
Mhm.
but it's like how could you get around that? That's just like how society functions. That's how humans function right now in society. So like until like there aren't clear advantages to appearing a certain way, like that's not going to stop, right? Like there's obvious advantages to appealing to society's ideal image, right? That's what a lot of privilege is, like with like white privilege um versus like black people, you know? Like there's a lot of disadvantages that are like built into society that most people don't really think about. Um I think it just ties into society as a whole needs to change if you actually want people to stop feeling this way. And it's like a that's like a slow process over the years, over the centuries, if ever. Um, but it's yeah, it's dangerous for a lot of women to to like always be chasing the highest beauty standard with surgeries and stuff. Um,
Oh yeah, that's true. That happens to a lot of like trans femme people. They want to look perfect all the time. And like I get it. I get wanting to look your best all the time. But like I guess there's like just this obsession with like keeping your youth sometimes when you're a trans femme because you know like what happens to cis women. So you're like always trying to like not go through that as well. But I don't know. It's just whenever I see them chasing vanity like that, I have to like ask, like, are you just doing that because you know that you want to keep that place in a patriarchal society to be like that hot girl? But that's just like not, it won't be consistent. Like, eventually that will fade. And then I don't know. I think that's what happens when a lot of trans people like feel like they just can't exist in society because they're like, you know, can't look a certain way or whatnot. And that's kind of like the biggest reason why there's such a bad suicide rate is because people like want to like chase the standard of like what trans really is, but like there is no what trans really is because what's trans is like what you feel,
it's
not
different for
how
every trans
society.
person,
Hmm.
and for every trans person, they have this ideal image of what they should appear like that they're always chasing. Um, some normal people have that too, but it's especially bad for trans people. And it's dangerous to get into. Um, because especially right now with the internet and social
Hmm.
media, with everybody living on social media and these like super extreme trans groups, super radical trans groups where they're saying, "Oh, I know you saw my talk with Mr. Girl. I don't know if, how much you saw, but
Was
he,
it that? Was that guy?
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, he's the one who told me about like these crazy Reddit groups where they're like, actually, I am a biological woman, and like they ban anybody who says they're not, and they get like really into like I'm an actual biological woman in every way. I've never seen that, so I don't know about that. Like I don't see a lot of trans people who think that. Maybe they do exist. Um but thinking that is kind of dangerous because like by definition like your body's never going to match that. Um and if you're always chasing something you're never going to match, then that's how you get like that's how you get like super depressed eventually when you realize it. Um when you realize the delusion. Um I think there's like different levels of delusion. Like I like spiritual teachings recently and Buddhism. Um like they all have like certain ideas, but they like the good ones stem from like your internal self, which is the same for everybody if you can look inside yourself. That's why they teach quieting the mind, and they like basically acknowledge that all your thoughts are not real. They're just delusions, you know? So it's
Mhm.
like there might be like some worse delusions, but they're all like all of your thoughts are kind of delusional because and by delusional I mean it's like they're not actions, you know? They're not actually real like until you manifest them in some way. Um so if you build up this idea you can never actually manifest, then that's like when you realize that, then you know, you're going to have a really bad crisis. Um so that's why I think it's important to talk to trans people about this so that they don't build up these crazy delusions and then realize it one day and you know kill themselves because that might happen a lot. Um, so that's why I like your post about you know
Mhm.
realizing everything. I think that was really good of you to post. Um,
It's because it it ties into so much about like my culture, my identity, like my family. It's like it goes into everything that makes me who I am, and being able to like look objectively and like decolonialize my mind and push myself away from patriarchal standards and like look at myself and look at like what I really want. It's just like crazy to me like how much projection and how much like things that society throws at me and makes me like want to question myself. It's like I never questioned myself. You guys made me question myself. You were always telling me, no, you can't play with this, you can't play with that, you can't do that. That's not what boys do. It's like if I would just let to be and be like a whimsical, dreamy kid, like maybe like things wouldn't have turned out this way,
right?
maybe but the thought would always be there. It's just like the actions that I did would be completely different than in the sequence of how they were handled now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Um, like these preconceived ideas of what masculine should be and what feminine should be. When you try to push that, like when you push that on somebody, I think it's like a mass hallucination of society. It's like it's right because most people think that way, but it's not like actually right. Like there could be some cultures or societies where you know the idea of masculinity is completely different than the idea of femininity. Um, and if you try to force that, it can backfire on people. Like I guess like it did with you and probably lots of other people. Um, yeah. Um, Do you have a lot of trans friends?
Um, kind of like my partner is trans, my roommate is trans. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't think I have many cis friends anymore. Like, and I like not to like make it like negative or not, but like I just like can't feel like I relate with them at all anymore. And I'd rather like give my time to mostly people that can relate with like things that I'm going through because I guess I've had to explain myself too much with trans stuff to the cis people. I'm just like so sick of that shit
Yeah,
because
I
they're
can see
always
that.
like disgustingly curious. Like it's never just like,
Really?
oh, like what's like what how did your mind? There's like, oh, they start asking about like, oh, did you have that surgery? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I guess I just don't. The only friends that I really talk to still are people who knew me before I transitioned. So it's
Oh,
like
really?
being trans isn't really part of that relationship. Um, and they're kind of assholes, so I don't really talk about it.
Oh,
I mean,
do
they're
you feel
like
like
no, we're like close, but like you
oh
know how like sometimes family like fights
yeah.
and but you still like them. I guess
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's like my brothers. Sorry, it's like me and my brothers used to fight all the time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but we're still really close. Uh, so it's like I guess looking back, it was pretty toxic relationship, but I feel like it's like it created a bond that you can't break. Um, so when I interact with people, I just interact with them as people. I don't really ever talk about being trans or anything. Um, like I prefer not to, if that makes sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see a reason to make it part of my identity any more than it already is, you know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like some people apply labels to themselves and stick with them way too hard to where they like put themselves in a box of how they should be. And when you do that, it's hard to break out and grow from like beyond that box when you're supposed to be always growing. So that's why I don't like labeling myself with anything, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah,
Um,
you don't have to.
yeah. Um, some people just make it their entire identity and then it becomes like their entire life. I don't know. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I
Do you think
kind
that's
of
dangerous?
I think when your whole persona is just like about you being trans, it's like definitely like I don't know. Like I feel like I sound like such a bitch when I say this, but it's like it can be kind of annoying. Like I get it, like I totally get it, but it's like, can you talk about anything that's not trans really for once, you know?
Yeah.
But like
I don't
I
think you
think
sound like a bitch. That's just true. Like
I feel like I'm just being mean when I say stuff like that because like I get it, like I understand, but it's like get something else to talk about. Like you're allowed to be a person with many like personas about yourself. You don't have to stick with one.
yeah,
Like
there's
people are too multifaceted to just be one thing.
yeah, it's like getting addicted to a video game and then just playing that for your entire life and then like you never do anything else.
Oh my god, are you talking about me? That's me with League of Legends.
No. But like I know a lot of people who are just like hardcore addicted to video games and then like they don't do anything else. And it's like, there's a lot of other fun things you could be doing, right? But like
Oh yeah.
it's not fun because you just like that's what addiction is when you lose the ability to enjoy a wider variety of things. That's what I'd say addiction is. So, um it's kind of like a similar concept, I guess, uh with the identification thing. Um like there's so many things you could build upon, but you choose this one thing. It's not
Mhm.
like it I guess people just go through stages. Like most people probably grow out of that unless you're in like
Yeah,
some crazy
I
cult.
think Yeah, I think they do too. Like, I think it's just like kind of like that baby mode of like first like coming into yourself. And
Mhm.
I mean, sometimes you go back to that because I do think like people are allowed to like regress healthfully, like, and that's totally fine too.
Yeah. Do you think being trans is a mental illness?
No, I don't think so.
No. What do you
I
think about the
used to.
people who think that?
I used to, but I only thought that because that's what everyone was telling me.
Right?
But now I'm like, why is it a mental illness? It's just like something, it's just the way that I think. It doesn't mean that like it's like mentally ill. It's just like
I
I have a
guess it
different
depends how you
insight.
define mental illness. Like you could call anything a mental illness if you define it a certain way.
That
Right?
is true because I mean, I feel like it's hard not to be like a little bit mentally ill during like this time of the world anyway. So it's like, is everyone just mentally ill to deal with like the overwhelming pandemic?
Yeah. I guess I've heard some people define it like it's a mental illness because a lot of trans people want to be the other gender completely, the other sex completely, and to want something like that when your body isn't actually like that means that there's a disconnect between your mind and your body. Um and I guess that's why they call it mental illness. Or they'll say like they think they're the opposite sex, and then that's how they'll say like, "Oh, if you actually think you are but you're not the opposite sex according to your body, then that's the mental illness." Um I feel like most trans people don't think they're actually the other biological sex though. So, that's I don't think that's true. Um like I think they're aware that they're trans, and most people don't mind saying they're yeah, I'm biologically a male, but I identify as a woman. Um
Mhm.
and I don't think it's a mental illness because okay, it could be if it like is negatively impacting you to the point where you're like you can't function properly. And maybe if you like think you're actually the sex when you're not, maybe you could call it mental illness if you want then. Um but most trans people are super aware how biology works. Um and I don't think it's any different than wanting to change your body in other ways. Like people who spend uh 10 hours a week at the gym modifying their body to look a certain way. Like, okay, my mind doesn't match my body right now, so I'm going to take action to match it. Like you do that, you're doing that every day to different extents. Um so it just depends on like which extent are you going to? Like how far are you going to go? It's like the philosophy like when does a grain of sand become a pile of sand? It's like at which point would modifying would wanting to modify your body become a mental illness, right? Like I guess the
Mhm.
only point you could actually say is when it's like causing you to be super suicidal and non-functional. Um but there's plenty of well-functioning trans people. So just wanted to make that known. Because there's like you could point at any type of person and see that they're not functioning properly. Um, just to like alleviate the negative stigma of that belief. Like even if there is like if you believe in science, you believe in like brain scans, even if your brain isn't like a doesn't have a big F in the middle of it, if you think that's how humans work, uh, it's not any worse to want to change your physical body, uh, to represent the female gender more, if you feel that way. Um, what do you think about hormones?
Um, Honestly, personally, I like them a lot because I'm trying to look good for a long time. I love the benefits. Like testosterone wrecked my skin, and when I'm on estrogen and like Spiro, like I don't deal with any of those problems. And I guess it's like a vanity thing. And I don't know, I just like to be pretty. Like testosterone was not going to make me pretty, so I said no, thank you.
So do you still take Spiro after the bottom surgery? That's an
Oh
androgen
yeah.
blocker for
Yeah,
people who don't know.
I just take it for skin purposes
Uh
though,
huh.
because like I get really bad hormonal acne sometimes. Like I know this is probably weird, but like sometimes I will sync up with like I have a cis friend. Um,
Uh
I
huh.
have a few like I think I have a few like cis assigned female at birth friends, and I will literally sync up with them. Like I obviously won't like have like those like pains and stuff,
Uh
but
huh.
I'll literally be like I can just tell like my friend is on her like monthly thing, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, how do I know that? Like, and
Yeah.
I'll be like really irritable around them too, and it's just like
Like
it's like
people you spend
something.
time with every day. Do you live with them, or
Oh,
like
it's
when they?
just like one of my best friends. Like, I'll hang
Mhm.
out with them like once in a while, and sometimes they'll be on their monthly cycle, and I was like, oh wow, like I could literally tell you were. And then they're
Yeah,
like, oh, I think we synced. I was like, yeah, I think so too.
that's funny. Yeah, I mean, cis women sync up if they spend a lot of time together. I think. Um,
Hmm.
I've heard that. Um, I wonder how that works.
I have no idea. That shit is so complicated because, like, I remember I saw a video about another trans girl talking about it, and people were just like throwing her to the ground like the wolves. They were like, "You'll never know what having a period sounds like or feels like. I don't know why you're even saying that shit." And I was like, "Why are y'all so mad?" Like, she was just saying like she synced up with her friend.
Yeah,
Like, that's
like
like
people
there's
sync
nothing
up
wrong
like
with that.
spiritually. Like if you're like spending a lot of time with somebody and you're like on the same vibe and mood all the time, like that could influence your body physiologically because if you're like sharing the same moods and like sharing the same foods and like what you're talking about and how you're feeling like I could see it makes sense to sync up a bit more. um do you take progesterone?
I actually never have taken that before. Like my doctors, every time I had one, they would like recommend me not to. I
Mhm.
used to take like what was it, finasteride, because before I
Finasteride.
was, yeah, like when I was pre-op, I was having some hair issues, and I said, I need to get this nipped in the butt now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's a DHT inhibitor. So a lot of
Mhm.
people take that for hair loss. A lot of guys are on that. Um, do you think there are any negative effects? Do you take estrogen pills or injections?
Oh, I take pills. I would love to do shots, but I am not sticking a needle in me. Oh
Oh,
no.
you don't like needles?
No, I get so squeamish.
It doesn't hurt that much.
Oh, like it doesn't hurt. I just like if I see like a needle going into my skin, like I get really queasy, and I fainted quite a few times getting my blood drawn
Oh
because
my gosh.
yeah, because like I'm anemic, so like when
Do you
they
just
tell
like
me to fast, it makes it even worse. So,
yeah. Hmm. Do you think there are any negative effects to taking hormones? Like do you feel worse physically or do you Are you more tired or
Honestly, I've always felt like this. So I'm like, that shit didn't change. I just like I feel miserable, but I'm also like calm anyway.
Yeah.
Like I feel good about like I don't know, when I pop my little estrogen skill under my skittle under my tongue every morning, I just feel like so beautiful inside. It's like my routine. Like
Yeah.
I literally do it every day at 12. So it's like just part of my day.
That's funny. Um, do you get how often do you get blood work done?
Oh, I have to get it done like every 3 months, which is like, I'm gonna be honest with you, that shit is so bullshit. Like, I don't know why they always have to have labs all the time. Like, that stuff like
What
makes
do
me
you
mad.
check?
It's like, they just check my estrogen and testosterone levels. 'Cause they're like, we need to make sure that you're okay. And I
That's
was like,
it.
I've
Do
been
they
okay.
test like liver, kidney function or anything?
Oh, I guess like they do like I think for like the
Basic
spiral or
metabolic
whatever.
panel.
Yeah, I think like maybe, but like I've never looked at that stuff because I don't know how to read that chart.
You should just do that sometimes too.
Yeah, but they usually just tell me like if there's any issues and they're like, "No, you're good." And I'm like, "Okay."
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of doctors like they don't know what they're doing with hormone
Oh
treatment.
no. No, they don't. You want me to tell you why? Because every single doctor I went to, I would just be like, "I'm post-op. I need my pills." And they're like, "Okay, here's a prescription." And they never question me,
What the heck?
which is weird because I'm like, aren't they supposed to ask me questions? But I guess like if
They
someone's
don't know
coming in there,
anything. Like
yeah, I
half of
guess like
them.
if I guess if someone's going in there asking for it, like it's probably like because they actually need it.
Yeah. Um I guess if you go to endocrinologist, they will know more because there's a
Hmm.
lot of tests that most general practitioners won't test for like they don't test SHBG or free testosterone or FSH and LH or whatever those two are. And
Hmm.
all like and progesterone. Like there's so many factors. Like you want to get your SHBG around like 110, and you want to get your LH and FSH levels at a certain point, and most people
Hmm.
don't even check for those.
Dang, you kind of smart, huh? I was like, what the hell did you say?
Yeah. um sorry. um a lot of so old W path standards, which is like the trans standards of care,
Hmm.
they recommended against progesterone because there were a lot of studies in cis women where they would give them progesterone post menopause, and like they thought it would increase cancer risk, but they were giving them synthetic progesterone, and they realized that more recently that bioidentical progesterone is much better for you, but they don't have all the same studies. So like WPATH is really behind on progesterone, I think. And now there's certain doctors like Dr. Powers is a good trans doctor who cares more about patients. Um he thinks that progesterone is like super important for breast development. Like you
Oh
won't
yeah.
you won't get past like 10 or 3 stage breast growth. 10 or 3 is like the third stage out of 10 or 5. And in order to reach 10 or 5, you need to be on progesterone.
Oh,
Um
actually, that kind of makes sense. I think I have that problem actually.
yeah, because like females have progesterone for a reason, right? Like
Mm.
it's not just like some useless hormone. And they also there was some new there's some new info saying that they think progesterone is healthier for you. Um, like it can lower breast cancer risk and stuff.
Mhm.
So it seems to be a good thing to at least try your cycle. But then you have to test more
Yeah.
blood work. Um,
Mm. Giving me ideas. I'm gonna ask my doctor about that next time.
yeah, you can look up Dr. Powers. He has like a really good PowerPoint. And he primarily treats trans patients, and he's really popular for that. Um,
Mm.
the thing is, like, there's a lot of potential enzyme mutations in the human body that are different for everyone. So, if you take progesterone, um, there's the potential for it to convert to a form of testosterone in your body. So it doesn't happen to everyone, but that's something to be aware of. Um, so the human body is like super complicated. Um, I wish I wish we were more advanced with hormone treatment. Because then I would like feel more comfortable like with people taking it. Um, but I guess there's no incentive to do more research into that right now. Like maybe for postmenopausal women, but there's just no money going into it.
Oh yeah, that is true because that was made like they talk about like HRT like it's just for trans people. I'm like, no, they literally invented that for cis women and cis men. Like
Yeah, there's a lot of
when they
postmenopausal women
yeah, when they
who
get
are on the
older, like
same regime.
mhm.
Um, and they feel like I know two postmenopausal women who are on HRT, and they are like I would rather die than not be on HRT postmenopause. So
No,
I guess they like it.
seriously.
Yeah.
It's like for me, like I've went through that. Like since I don't have like, you know, testosterone like at all, like make like it's like really low. So um like I withdrew from estrogen because like I had a doctor who like didn't write my prescription again because he was like, well, I
Mhm.
haven't seen you in blank blank blank, and it's like it's a pandemic, I need my pills, like I'm not going to get an appointment for like a month, like you could at least like fill it for me. And he's like, no, you're out of luck. And it's like
What a
to see
cunt.
like yeah, it's like and he was like an LGBT like person, he worked at the center in Vegas, so like to see someone like throw me like to the wolves like that is like even if like it's not in your practice, like holy shit, like shouldn't your compassion override that?
Right? Like
Because
why are you a doctor? You're supposed to want to help people. And you know
yeah,
somebody's
and
post-op, but you don't give them like, the hormones they need.
yeah, I was like I called him and like emailed him and everything. I was like, I'm going to go through withdrawal and like that's gonna send me like, you know, like I could have like probably on a like I was like really manic during that stage and I was like going through a lot. So it's like I don't know, like if things were different, like in some aspects, like I don't know if I would have been here today if like that really happened to me. Because
Mhm.
going through like like estrogen withdrawal is like your body's on fire. Like you get hot flashes like every like I would get them like every 20 minutes,
Jeez.
and like I would get like really explosive anger, and it was just like I couldn't eat anything. Everything was just not cute.
Yeah,
It
cuz your
was not
hormones
cool.
like signal your body to produce. They're like the signals, the instructions for your body to do certain things and regulate certain emotions and digestion and sleep and melatonin production and all of that.
Yeah, like
So it's super
it
important.
legit feels like you're dying.
Mhm.
It's I don't know how to describe it. Like I never want to go through that again.
Nah, you know what it's like to be a postmenopausal woman. That sucks. Um, hmm. Yeah, I think I asked you the hard questions, the hardest questions.
Oh, did you? Did you have like a list of them?
Uh, no, I wasn't looking at a list. I was just thinking. um, I think I just wanted to ask. I think that realization of like not actually wanting to be a woman, but just wanting to identify a certain way and feel a certain way is one of the hardest things for most trans people to realize and admit. Um, at least from the people I've talked to. I don't know about you. Um,
I think like I don't want to seem like controversial when I say stuff
uh,
like this, but like when I have immersed myself with more like POC queer people, like I started seeing like different ways to like understand like gender and like society's like constructs of it and like how to differentiate that between like what's you and what's like a beauty standard that the patriarchy has like just thrown up in front of us. And I don't know, it's
mhm,
I really just love that my friends have given me such like a an expansive aspect of like what I can see now, because I know like years ago I was like so close-minded. Like Loki was like a trans medicalist at one point, like oh my God. And
what's a trans
to see
medicalist?
like I used to be like that person that was like, you need dysphoria to transition, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Like I was dumb as fuck. But to see myself like just remove myself from that fully and like free my mind and like understand like non-binary and how that intertwines with being trans even more, like just like open like a perspective in my brain that like I don't think I can unsee anymore.
Yeah, not the non-binary. You said it intertwines with being trans. I think
Hmm.
that's a good point because like when you think about it, being trans is just not conforming to mainstream's idea of how a male should act and how a female should act,
Hmm.
which like it's not real. Like it's not real that a male should act one way and a female should act another way. That's just how society tells you you should act. So I like I like acknowledging that people are like they freak out when you say you're trans and they like start saying that's not how a man should act. Um but really like there's no like hard coding into your genes about how you should act. It's just it's all it's like you're a clone to whatever society tells you to do if you think that way. Um so like you're kind of more brainwashed if you think like you need to act a certain way. Like you're just as brainwashed as a trans person who thinks they're the opposite sex. Literally, I think you're like you're kind of close. Um, except you're not modifying yourself, of course. Um, I think the only main point is like you could say that the least delusional a human being can be is when they're like 100% happy with their body and their mind and body is like perfectly aligned. Um, and they're like living the healthiest they possibly could be, but like most people don't do that, regardless of being trans. There's like 50% of the people in the U.S. are obese or something. Like
Oh, it's that high already.
it's like over,
Oh,
yeah, it's like over 40%. Um,
damn, I didn't realize it was that high.
high as fuck. um, nobody's talking about that much, are they?
I feel like that can be like I guess since like it can it can turn into like shaming people,
Yeah,
and people are like not okay with shaming others, but sometimes I think like it's not shaming people when you call attention to them when they need an intervention. Like at a certain point, like it's like yeah, like you can be totally okay like that, but at a certain point, it's like you're self-harming yourself.
Yeah, and
So it's like,
there's
is
a
it gonna be
difference.
beneficial or not?
Yeah, there's a difference between shaming somebody and then like educating them that, there's another way to be
Mhm.
and live and be happy with it. Hmm. Yeah. Do you have any like words of wisdom you would say to younger trans people?
Hmm. I would say just take your time. Like, I know that sounds so cliche and like dumb, but like don't rush into anything. Like I know like how easy it is to like trap yourself into like thinking like this surgery will fix me, this will fix me, all of this will fix me. It's like, do you even know where all of that comes from? And it's like, I think you really need to invest time in yourself, especially like when you go through traumatic stuff in your life. You need to take the time to like investigate all of that stuff and make sure that it's what you really want, because some of these things you can't change when it happens. And I've had like I had a friend who like died that was trans, and she, did a lot of like modification, and like she was just never happy. And I guess like I don't want anyone to ever like try so hard to like find that validation in being like conventionally attractive, because at the end of the day you need to be like enough for yourself, because you're always going to have your best interests at heart. So just make sure that those voices that you're listening to are your own and not people's projections of what you should actually be or look like in a society that's, not even for you, but just works against you.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. That's super important. And the problem is like you can say that to somebody, but it's gonna go right out the other ear if they don't like how could you learn to separate, like most normal people can't even separate society's projections from their own voice. So it's like when something is repeated in your head so much and then you cling to it and then you think about it every day, you're reinforcing it into your subconscious and then you fall asleep thinking that, and then it like gets deeply embedded into your subconscious. Like how can you distinguish that from something else? Like I don't know how younger people could do that without learning about mindfulness and meditation, I guess, and maybe therapy. Like I haven't really done therapy, but I've done mindfulness and meditation and stuff, and that's the only real way that I've learned to distinguish like fake thoughts from real desires.
Yeah, I think it's just something that you have to like practice within yourself, because, everyone's going to be different. And I've had friends that no matter like how many times I tell them, like it's never going to stick with them. And I'm always like, I don't know, I guess like always like repeating it to them, because I'm like, eventually you're going to thank me for this. Like, even if like you're rolling your eyes at me and like saying all this, like it's going to be important to you one day, because, like I've had so many trans friends. Like I've been a trans mom to so many like little babies that come to me, and they're like always like venting to me about things, and I'm like, it'll be okay. It's just some of the things that you're going through right now are extremely overwhelming. And when you tie that in with all of these other issues that you're experiencing, it's hard to differentiate voices. So I think
Yeah.
like finally removing yourself from like traumatic environments can always be like super beneficial, because I know for me, when I was really traumatized, I like ran away to Georgia, and I just sat with myself for like 2 years. I was just like going to therapy, like not really talking to anyone. Like, and I know that's like a privilege within itself.
Yeah.
for me to afford that. But I worked my ass off to be able to do that. And I guess like finally just being able to sit with myself and not like deal with my family, like, and anyone else, like, helped me like so immensely because now I know exactly like who I am, like what voice I listen to and the things that I need to do to like alleviate like those stressors, like with writing, going to therapy, like just going on a walk like helps me so much. And yeah, I guess like being mindful about like being appreciative of like where I'm at now compared to like where my mind can go when I get stuck in like those cycles of thinking about bullshit that I'm not involved in anymore. Hope that made sense. I feel like
Yeah,
I'm
that
saying a
made
bunch of
perfect sense.
gibberish.
That made perfect sense. It is a privilege. So, it is a privilege to be able to spend time alone, away from people. And most people don't realize like how much of a privilege that is until they actually can do it, or until they're like so fucked up, or if they until they think about how messed up society is making them, or they're or like constantly being on social media and scrolling through stuff and constantly feeding your brain with stuff. um Most people don't even spend like a few hours alone with themselves. Like they're always on their phone, or they're always scrolling through something or watching a video or listening to music. They don't like Most people probably don't ever think. They're like they don't actually like think and contemplate and feel themselves. And I'd say like 99% of people listening to this, if you actually went and took like 10 days away from everything, like if you could go to like some retreat and be alone without any technology, maybe like bring a book. If you could just like be alone with yourself and your thoughts for like a week, for like 10 days, even like a few days, like you and you actually think about yourself, and you like look into meditation a little bit, then like you're probably going to go through more growth than you have in years if you spend that time if you spend time alone, where you're not constantly like trying to get other people to validate your insecurities, or whether you're trying to get people to like stop making you more insecure. Either it could go either way, where you're constantly like you already have like this built up bunch of insecurities that you're constantly like projecting to other people, and then like constantly having back and forth conversation. If you can just like stop all of that for a few days, you'll probably go through a lot of growth, more so than you have in a long time. But most people don't have that free time. That's why like it's important to give a little bit of time to yourself, like daily, like an hour before bed, where you sit with yourself and learn some meditation or something. Um, or like try to find like some educational books, but like even books are a certain escape too.
Oh yeah,
Depending on
they
what you're
are.
reading, yeah, like especially fantasy books, which
Yeah.
most
I
people just read.
I just read mindlessly sometimes. It's actually such a it's like it's so bad.
Yeah, I like listening to audiobooks when I'm doing other things, like cooking or showering.
Hmm.
Um, those are nice, or driving. Um,
Oh, you drive?
hmm
Oh wow, I don't drive.
You don't drive? Why not?
Hell no. I am so scared of driving.
Really?
Like I have like an immense fear because like I got into a car accident one time when I was in an Uber and it was so
Oh
scary.
no.
Like I was like, I'm not driving no more.
Dude, it is honestly like the past few times I've been driving, it is scary because I was driving like an hour away to
Hmm.
some place, and like the past few times it was storming. It's like I could barely see, and it's like I'm worried it's gonna start
Oh.
snowing and I don't have traction tires. That
Hmm.
would be scary. But normally it's good.
Um,
Like as long as there's not like some crazy storm going on, and I'm like sliding on ice and I can't
yeah,
see in front of me and the car's like the mist from the water on the ground from the car in front of me is like blocking all the vision. That's like super annoying. That's kind of scary when
yeah,
you
I
can
would never
barely
want to do
see.
that. Oof. Have you ever
Um,
like driven on black ice?
I don't think so. But
Yeah,
I'm
that
worried
shit is
of that
scary.
because
Yeah.
like I'm driving like in the freezing cold and it's raining like any second it's going to start icing over and so, I'm probably more worried somebody else is going to fuck up and like crash
Hmm.
into me or something or like some like a big pickup truck is going to or like a one of those big supply trucks is going to like swerve into me
Some Final
every time
Destination shit.
every time it's driving by me, dude, it's going to like swerve out and like throw me off the bridge, you know?
Oh my God, your intrusive thoughts are coming out when you're driving.
Yeah, dude, I remember I was driving once with my mom and she would like freak out every time she was in between like two big supply like 20-ton trucks or whatever.
Mhm.
And she's like in the middle and she would like freak out every time.
My mom
So I just
actually
remember
is like
that.
that too. That's actually funny. Like,
Yeah, because they
is
can't
that just
like
like her?
there are big blind spots with those trucks, so
Mhm.
I try not to be next to those. It kind of makes sense. Yeah, the 18 wheelers.
Oh yeah,
Um,
you don't want to get crushed. But that sounds scary.
but driving's pretty fun. Other than that, hmm.
Mm.
When are you gonna get your license?
Probably never. I'm actually like a professional passenger. Like someone has to look hot in the passenger seat, and that's me.
Okay, okay, that's good. That's good. Hmm. Okay. Well, um, wait, hold on. I think.
Oh, did you want to end it here?
Um,
I
I was
know
just
you're like
thinking.
gonna get into your PUBG. Was it PUBG?
Oh,
I was like, dang, you still play that game?
I stopped for like 2 years, and then I kind of stopped streaming for a while, and then I came back.
Oh yeah, I noticed that. You're
Um,
like on your adventure shit.
AFK, yeah, doing shrooms stuff. Have you ever done psychedelics?
Actually, no. Like I was going to with my partner when we went to like this trip together, but I was like, I can't be doing that because like I don't know, like I get really like manic sometimes, so I'm like afraid like I might go through a depressive episode after I do something like that. Because
After you
that's
do
kind of
shrooms?
scary. Yeah, that's kind of scary for me because like it like ups your serotonin, I guess, or whatever. So like I already have like really low like levels of that already. So I'm like, oh no, I don't want to
Mm.
like shock myself or something.
everybody that I know who's done psilocybin, um,
Mhm.
regardless of how the trip goes, they feel like a lot better after. Like even if they have like a super negative trip,
Mhm.
as long as they survive the trip the next day, um, they feel way better after. Um, so I don't think it's like alcohol or like other hardcore like MDMA super makes you blissful happy, and then like a
Mhm.
lot of people get super depressed after because it uses up all their feel good hormones and stresses the body. Um, have you ever gone into dieting and fitness and stuff,
Um,
or like
actually
exercise?
actually not really. Like I'm actually like I'm like really blessed with like a really high metabolism. So like I've
Hmm.
always been like just like really skinny. So like the most that I do like every day is like I just go on a walk for like 30 minutes, like just to get some
Yeah,
sun and
cardio is
just get
good.
myself outside. So like that's kind of like the fullest extent of me like working out or like going on a hike or something. I never got into like managing my eating and stuff like that. I think it's the complete opposite for me, like where I'll binge eat like really bad sometimes.
Hmm.
So
I just think it's important to try to make sure you're getting micronutrients at least. Um, because this is leading off the psychedelic thing because certain psychedelics can stress your physical body and use up like certain minerals and vitamins. So,
mhm.
like if you're deficient in certain minerals and vitamins, then it maybe it could have some negative effects. Um, but that's about it, I think. Um,
Mhm.
or if you like smoke weed a lot, uh, magnesium is like the most important mineral. It's like responsible for like over 40% of the enzyme function in your body. So the more the more you're in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is like the mode where you can enter into fight or flight, where you will like feel more anxious and stuff.
Mhm.
The more you spend in that mode, which is probably most people these days, the higher your magnesium burn rate becomes. For example, um, so most people are super deficient in that, and then it can like progressively make other things worse. Um, so if you do like any drugs, you want to like be more careful about getting your micronutrient intake. Um,
Actually, I think you're really right about magnesium because like I was taking that religiously for like an entire year and like I stopped taking it for now and I've noticed I've like gotten a little worse. So I'm like, maybe it is the magnesium because I was like taking a lot of it every day
yeah,
and
I take a
it
lot of it.
honestly it honestly makes me feel really good.
Well, yeah, you should definitely start taking it again,
Yeah.
100%.
My little
Especially like I was trying to
experiment.
get my little brother to do it because they're always smoking weed, freaking kids, and that can like totally deplete your minerals and stuff if you're like always in an altered state of consciousness that isn't actually normal. And also it can support like detoxification pathways for your lungs
Mhm.
and stuff. Um, so yeah, you should take at least magnesium. Um, magnesium bisglycinate and L-threonate are two really good forms for anybody listening. Those are like the latest forms. L-threonate is the one that can pass the blood-brain barrier, and then bisglycinate is really good for systemic absorption. Uh, so I take both of those every day. Um,
Damn, you're really smart.
thanks. Um, Yeah. So I think I don't recommend anybody do psychedelics, but like you've thought a lot about your inner demons,
Mhm.
and I think what psychedelics do is they try to show you more of the truth by showing you different perspectives and making you question your beliefs. So for a lot of people, it might make them like really paranoid. It might make them really paranoid if they've never questioned their current little circle they're in. Um,
Mhm.
or if they don't do a lot of contemplation. But for other people, if they're into that, then it can show them like what like a lot of new perspectives that they otherwise never would have considered, and it can like get them past thought loops that they're stuck in, where it's like they're just repeating the same little thought loop and they can't get over it. Um, and something like psilocybin, it's classified as like a breakthrough drug for depression and anxiety and stuff. That can like get you over that by like putting you in a different perspective. Um,
Mhm.
so that's like my favorite drug personally. Um, I don't do it that much, but not anymore at least. But that was super helpful for getting me more into mindfulness and meditation and stuff. Um, because when you experience what it makes you feel like, then it gets you curious again about certain things that you lost interest in because it like can get you over hurdles that are keeping you stuck where you are. Um, I think it's like the same as like contemplating something that makes you super depressed and finally figuring out why you're depressed. Like it works towards doing that in a sense. Um,
I see it.
yeah. Do you think, looking back now, do you think there's a different way to display your inner beauty other than transitioning?
Oh, like if I could start over, like what would I do? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, I like being very like androgynous. Like I feel like I still kind of look like that, but now I'm like obviously leaning more towards being femme. But like I had I had like this idea like that I originally wanted to do when I was younger. I was like, I just want to be like this really hot androgynous like person that doesn't look like it looks like they could be both kind of thing. Like that was
Mhm.
what I wanted to be. And I mean like I guess I still kind of am like that because like my partner, she'll like call me like she's like, you look like such a handsome prince or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, like quit. But she like sees me in a way that I wish other people saw me. So like whenever she says like compliments like that, like yo, you're so handsome, like
Do you
you
like
look like such
handsome prince?
yeah, I love like when she gives me like
That's a good
traditionally
one.
like masculine compliments because like people will always be like, oh, you're so gorgeous, you're so beautiful. But people would never be like, well, you were just such a handsome little person, aren't you? And I was like, oh my God, thank
Have you
you.
thought about why you like the masculine compliment? That
I think
reminds me of
it's
something.
mm,
I used to be against masculinity too, and one time I was looking in the mirror and I was like talking to myself. I was like, it's okay to be masculine. Like I love masculinity just the same as I love femininity. And like
mhm.
if you talk to yourself like that, you can like feel your spirit's reaction. So it's like if you spend a long part of your life hating and like attacking all the masculine parts of yourself, when you finally like give the masculine part to yourself some love, then it can feel really good. So I like that you mentioned those compliments.
Yeah, it's because I think like whenever I would hear like someone be like, "Oh, that's masculine on you," and I would think it was an insult, but now I'm like, "Oh, you think so? Thank you."
Yeah,
Like some
right.
people would be like, "Your shoulders are huge." I was like, "Oh my God, thanks for thinking about my shoulders." Like just making them like think like I just don't care because it's like I don't know, I really don't. Like whenever people say shit like that, I'm like, I don't care. Like I know I'm cute. I know I'm like handsome. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like human beings are allowed to be like embodiments of both like masculinity and femininity. There's like nothing like I feel like there's such like a weird way where people
Dualistic
just like
way
yeah,
of
they're
looking
like
at it.
that's weird or that's gross. I'm like, why? Like that's just fucking cool. Like androgyny to me is just like so very attractive. So
Yeah, I love that. Because everybody has feminine and masculine parts of themselves, whether they realize it or not. And
mhm.
loving both parts of yourself is super important for your soul and your mind. So, like, I'd say if you're like hating some part of yourself, just like look at yourself and like just say like, "Hey, I love that part too," and like say it out loud. Like if you hate the masculinity, look in the mirror and be like, I love the masculine parts too." um, because I remember um when I first started streaming,
Mhm.
um my PUBG videos were getting like there were some with like millions of views on YouTube, and I would read the comments, and
Oh.
there's like literally every single comment was like hating me for something. And I used to it's like it doesn't even matter if you look at it neutrally, but if you
Mhm.
read something and you think about it, it's going to like be put into your subconscious no matter what you're scrolling through. Like so if you like read something 1,000 times, it's like going to come up. Like you have to it's going to be like embedded into you. Like you read something 10,000 times, like so it's like brainwashing in a sense, you know? So
Mhm.
if you see everybody is saying a certain thing, then it might like as a human, it might make some part of you want to appeal to that. And I think it's important to realize it doesn't matter how many people are saying something. Uh, if it doesn't resonate with who you are on the inside, or if it goes against how you're feeling, like you don't have to um compromise on yourself for it. You don't have to like change your way of thinking for it. And I think that's really hard to learn in most people because humans just love being liked, but not a lot of people are okay with people hating you, you know, or people like having different views. You know, it's harder to like be happy and confident in a room of everybody who's in a room full of people who are judging you. So it's like the real challenge is learning how to be confident around people who are like externalizing their judgments to you all the time. And I think that takes a lot of work for anyone.
Especially when you're a streamer, like, because when I'm pretty sure like when you play with people that are bigger, like, and you get a lot of attention from like their fan bases, sometimes like that negativity can really just like rub off on you and like make you feel like shit. Because that was like a big issue for me when I was like trying to become like a streamer and I was like stealth for a while. Like I would see like in their chats like them just like outing me, like just like
Yeah.
slandering me every single time. I was like, why does that fucking matter? They're like, oh, she was a dude, right? It's like,
I know
who
people like start
cares?
obsessing over it and they'll just like this one guy on my Instagram yesterday, someone replied to him And I looked at his account and he's like going and replying to every comment complimenting me, and he's saying, "You know that's a dude, right?" And it's like he's
Fuck.
like spending weeks like on my Instagram like replying to every comment saying, "You know that's a guy, right?" It's so weird. Like people get so obsessed about it. Um I thought that was funny. Uh
Those people are the ones who like you the most, and that's the scary part because like
rent
they're
free.
obsessed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's just always gonna be people like that. They like become obsessed with like outing you because like I guess like when you're not talking about it publicly, they think like, oh, like you obviously feel insecure about it, so I'm just gonna attack you and like make you feel bad about it. But it's like just says more about them when they say shit like that. It's like, can you guys shut the fuck up and just leave me alone?
Yeah, if you spent like half the time you did obsessing over other people as you did thinking about yourself, you'd probably wouldn't be wasting all your time commenting on random people uh every day. Like it's not really getting you anywhere. It's just like you're clearly insecure about something. You don't have anything better to do. It's like
Mhm.
it's the same with any streamer who has a lot of hate. Like I know one of my friends, um, she started feeling like super anxious because like there's just so many trolls on the internet just saying bad things, and some people never learn how to just ignore it, like absorb it and like fill it with your positive energy instead of lowering yourself to their negative energy. Um and it is way harder as a streamer when you're just like putting yourself out there to hundreds or thousands of people. Um and if you go through the trouble of reading what everybody says, then you're just exposed. You got to have thicker skin. You're just exposed to more ideas which most people never will be exposed to. They're never exposed to like thousands of people hating them for how they are,
Mhm.
because nobody really does that in the real world for the most part. Like there's some scenarios, but like not on a daily basis where you're reading criticism or you're reading just plain judgmental hate from insecure people every day. um yeah, it affects all streamers. um but it's just worse if it's something you're personally insecure about. That's why it's important to work through it internally so that it does, like, you get to the point where it doesn't matter what anybody else says as long as you're confident in yourself. Yeah, think um I think that was the last question that I had.
Yeah, how long have we been talking?
Like 2
It's
hours.
oh my god.
When are you supposed to go to bed?
I've been sleeping at 4 a.m. personally. This daylight savings time has sent me into a whiplash.
Yeah, my sleep keeps getting messed up too. Freaking streaming, it's their fault. Every time I
What time do
stream,
you sleep?
depends. I went to sleep at like 2 yesterday, but
Oh, it's not bad.
yeah, yeah. But then I woke up early because of something, and then I couldn't. I was still super tired. So,
Um,
um, do you think we already talked about this, but what was it like when you realized that it wasn't a woman you wanted to be? Like, what did you cry or like when you
oh
realized that,
yeah. Oh
like
yeah,
a
I
lot?
did. Yeah, like I tend a lot to my childhood wounds and like I like journal to myself. I like it's weird. I like write stories to my younger self, almost like kind of like when I get into like a regressive mindset, I like they're like stories to like keep me going. It's like, don't forget, like, I'm still here. Cause like I don't know if
I
that's
like
weird to
that.
say. Like sometimes I let my like my childhood self out because that is a part of myself, like part of my personality where I still enjoy like such simple things of life, like where I just want to go outside and catch bugs and just sit outside with like squirrels and feed them and just I don't know, like very simple shit, like go to the creek and just like put my feet in the water kind of stuff.
I love that.
Um
Yeah.
yeah, like I never want that side of myself to ever go away. So I always like am tending to that wounded part of myself because like even though like I am grown, I'm an adult, like I'm 30, like I will never feel like I'm 30 years old because my mind kind of doesn't match like my age, if that makes sense. So, like
Yeah.
I know I'm an adult, but like I will never feel like one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that's good. Um, I think that's like an ideal goal that humans should have is to return to the state of childlike wonder that they used to have, where everything was great and happy, and you had curiosity and creativity, and you had a good imagination, and you could just enjoy the little things.
Hmm.
Because you lose that as you get indoctrinated into society. You are constantly told you have to do this and you have to do that, or you're going to die, you're going to be homeless, you're going to be a failure. So constantly being told that embeds it into your mind that you can't have fun like you used to. But like really the only reason you're going through all this struggle where you're miserable working a 9 to 5 job daily and you have no free time, like you can't forget why you're doing that. You're doing that so you can enjoy life again. And I think the goal is to return to that childlike state of wonder. And most people lose sight of that and they don't even remember. 99% of the people I talk to uh, don't care or even think about that. And they'll
Oh,
probably say it's
really?
dumb. Yeah.
That makes me sad. Cause
Yeah.
I like when I finally realized that I was like crying because like I got so upset because I was like I was becoming like such a shell of who I was because I was like trying to be like this person that I wasn't and I was like why can't I just be myself and then I just started just like letting myself be who I really want to be and it's like oh wow I actually am a very intricate person who just wants to I don't know like I just want to play and have fun like I don't know
Give me
why
some
people don't want to.
give me some crayons to draw with.
Yeah, seriously, like let's go on a hike and go catch like bugs and make a terrarium. Like, why can't life be that fun?
Yeah, I love that. How do you think you get the childlike wonder back?
I feel like I guess like you just have to realize like that you don't have to be like a jaded person all the time. Cause like I have friends who are like that. They're always like just
Lesson
so
3,
down
good
about
as talk.
everything. And
Lesson
I'm
3.
like, why does it have to be like that? And they're like, it's because it is, it's reality. I was like, well, I don't want to live in reality. I want to be delusional. And I have chosen to be delusional, I guess, because
That's
at
awesome.
least like at least I'm having fun and living because the after like the complete opposite of that is just like suffering and I don't want to deal with that. That's
You
boring.
know, I said that before where it's like I was going like super deep into spirituality and meditation and psychedelics and stuff. And I was
Mhm.
talking to a friend and they're like at one point they're like, "Are you in a psychosis?" And I was like I like thought like you know So there's so many people who hate their life every day and they're just not happy. They hate what they do all the time. They're depressed as fuck. Hey, but they have a good job at least. You know? Like, oh, they're being
Mhm.
productive in society. It's like I actually think if you're depressed, you're more in a psychosis than somebody who's like actually delusional, but they're not as successful materially. Like I'd rather be in a psychosis and happy than uh be depressed as fuck and like successful materially. Like I'd
Mm.
take it any day to be delusional if you want to call it that. But I think the people who are like hating their life every day, I think those people are more delusional than somebody else who wants to have fun like a child again.
Oh
Um
yeah, that's kind of like my it's kind of like why there's like such a divide with me and my brother now, because he would always be like, you need to grow up. You need to start like doing this and that. I was like, first of all, you hate your life and you have a kid that you didn't even want. So like who are you even to judge, like to tell me to grow up just because your life blows? And it's like
yeah,
people that tell you to like do that are the ones that are just really jealous because they want to be able to like be like that. They want to enjoy like small things and be able to just be a kid again. Like I don't even know, like
have
people think that
emotional mastery. I think
yeah.
it's like mastering your emotions. And emotional mastery doesn't mean never showing emotions. That's not mastery. Mastery is being able to feel all the emotions and like build up your sense of internal love to the point where you can see like everything as love. Like I think
Mhm.
and to do that you have to work through all the negative emotions of depression and sadness, anxiety, anger, all of that builds up throughout your life where you literally just forget how to be happy again because you're just indoctrinated by everything that's making you depressed. And
Mhm.
yeah, you have to learn how to be silly again. And I think people who don't have that emotional connection within themselves, they'll like look at other people who do have it and like cope while by calling them cringe and stuff. And they'll actually feel the cringe, but it's like they're feeling the cringe because they just can't they don't know how to relate to that, you know?
I love that. It makes me think like so my partner, she calls me cringe all the time. And she's like, "But I love it. I love that you're so cringe and you don't care." I was like, "Yeah, because why would I give a fuck if someone thinks I'm cringe?" Like, but I've noticed that people appreciate you being like that more, like saying like really dumb shit and not giving a fuck. It's like life is so like fun and like so full of like so much wonder. Like, why even like I don't know, why not let people just be cringe as fuck within reason? Like some people are cringe in the worst possible way, but like being cringe, like, you know, like being like a hopeless romantic kind of shit with everyone is like something that I aspire to be.
That's a good goal. Yeah. I got to work on being more cringe online. I'm
It's
okay by
fun.
myself, but like it's harder to do it online recently alone. But I think that's a good goal. um yeah, I like that. Lumi, you will always be cringe in our hearts. Thank you. um cool.
Great talk.
Yeah, it was fun talking to you.
Yeah, I
I
think I need
liked
to head to bed soon.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I don't have any questions anymore. Um you have anything else you wanted to say? Or like
Honestly, no. I
say
just
your channel.
um, oh, say my channel. Don't watch my stream. I don't know if they'll like League of Legends. So
Nobody
that's
likes
all
League
I
of
play.
Legends.
No, they don't. They really don't.
Okay.
Well,
Um,
it was nice talking to you. Thank you so much for having me on.
yeah, thanks for joining. Good talk. I hope you sleep well. What's
Well,
so
I hope you
funny?
enjoyed. I don't know. I'm always just laughing. Like I'm a very laughy person. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your stream. I'll probably like be here for like an hour and then I'm gonna sleep.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the
All right.
talk.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye.